Hugo Viana faces early scrutiny as £70 million Manchester City call questioned Manchester City forward. Savinho failed to impress off the bench again at the weekend and needs to show more after an eye-opening summer. Tottenham's transfer interest in Savinho this summer arrived suddenly and unexpectedly. The winger had just returned home with his Manchester City teammates from their only pre-season friendly and were less than a week away from their Premier League opener when the news dropped that Savinho could be off. Tottenham wanted him, and, as ever, City would be open to a deal at the right price. That felt like a surprise to supporters, with the verdict very much still out after a first season at the club, where he hadn't really taken off, but hadn't arrived into the best situation either. The potential was clear, and had been in evidence again during the Club World Cup, where he was picked to play more than anyone else, but the goal returns weren't quite there yet. More eyebrows were raised at Savinho's actions during the few weeks where he was potentially on the move. He suddenly came down with an injury that wiped him out for the entirety of the transfer window, and posting images on social media with packed suitcases hardly gave the impression that he wanted to stay at the Etihad. Ultimately, City's £70 million valuation wasn't met, and a decision was made by City before the window shut to keep Savinho. They then went one further and handed him a 6-year deal that ties him to the Etihad until 2031. If Savinho spoke on that announcement of the areas of his game he still felt needed to improve, Sporting Director Hugo Viana went above and beyond what was necessary. He has so many excellent attributes. His potential really is limitless. He has superb natural ability, works incredibly hard day in, day out, and he is humble. 2 months on from that, there is grumbling on pretty much every match day about how necessary it was first to reject Tottenham's interest, and secondly to give him a new contract second in length only to Erling Haaland. Many supporters who weren't too impressed with Savinho during the approach from Spurs are yet to be won over by his performances this season. With his only goal so far coming in the Carabao Cup game at League One side Huddersfield, it isn't hard to understand why. Too many performances have flattered to deceive, and the 21-year-old has failed to build on his excellent display at Villarreal last month. There is some mitigation in the fact that he appears better and more productive on the right wing, but has predominantly been used on the left, and he also has age on his side with the added caveat that the second season is often the charm under Guardiola. However, for some of his growing critics, it isn't even about output. In a number of his appearances off the bench this season, his application has been questioned. As Jeremy Doku and others rise to meet their challenges, Savinho must do more to earn appreciation again and justify his new deal. And having taken over from Cheeky Begiristain this summer, a sporting director recently named the best in the world, Viana has an early test of his judgment in both blocking a Savinho exit and then rewarding him with a bumper new deal. Nico Gonzalez has paid off gamble to vindicate critical Manchester City call. Manchester City midfielder Nico Gonzalez has allowed the Blues to move on from what was becoming a nagging issue for Pep Guardiola. It is just over a month since Manchester City touched down in Villarreal for their third Champions League game this season, and once again they were having to find a Rodri substitute. The Ballon d'Or winner was being honoured with a plaque outside the stadium of his former club and was due to do media commitments, but wasn't fit enough to be included in the matchday squad. Step forward Nico Gonzalez, who was still looking to show he could be a leading man for City. Gonzalez had watched Rodri star in the 2-0 win over Napoli to kickstart their European campaign, with the talk then of how good Rodri looked starting his second game in 5 days. Gonzalez had then replaced an indifferent Rodri in Monaco a few weeks later, only to concede a late penalty that allowed the home team to equalise and left Erling Haaland so angry he stormed off the pitch. The penalty seemed harsh, but it added to the narrative that has lasted over a year, that City without Rodri are missing a fundamental ingredient for success. 4 days later, it was Rodri's name on the team sheet at Brentford, only for him to suffer a hamstring injury in the 20th minute that required Gonzalez to rush onto the pitch. That moment forced City to be more cautious about how they used Rodri and take the plunge on Gonzalez. City's January signing has started 7 of the last 8 games, and may have had a clean sweep if a nasty blow in Villarreal hadn't forced him out of the Aston Villa game. It did not seem a coincidence that City's midfield did not look the same at Villa Park as it has in other games, as Gonzalez has really made his mark. He may not be Rodri, and City may not yet have a team capable of conquering all. They still have their vulnerabilities, as Saturday's defeat to Newcastle showed. However, the last month has moved Pep Guardiola's team on from the focus on Rodri, and that has only happened because Gonzalez has stepped up his level and flourished with the added responsibility he has been given. City will still be a better team when Rodri returns, and there is an argument for playing him with Gonzalez. But one of the major themes from last season's struggles that threatened to spill into this campaign suddenly feels like much less of an issue. If City can beat Leverkusen on Tuesday night and effectively book a top 24 place with 3 games to go, progress in the Champions League will feel a lot easier too. Manchester City promote 2 youngsters to first-team training ahead of Leverkusen fixture. As squad confirmed, Manchester City have trained ahead of Tuesday's Champions League clash with Bayer Leverkusen at the Etihad. Academy midfielder Jadon Heskey and defender Jadon Katongo have trained with the Manchester City first team ahead of their Champions League fixture against Bayer Leverkusen on Tuesday. The 19-year-old Heskey made his first team debut against Huddersfield in the Carabao Cup in September and was included in the session with 3 midfielders missing out. Mateo Kovacic is ruled out until February, while Rodri remains on the sidelines as City preach caution with his fitness. Calvin Phillips was also missing from training at the City Football Academy. Phillips isn't registered in the Champions League squad, but has been training. His absence meant Heskey was promoted. He is captained in the under-21s in Premier League 2 this season and has played every minute of that campaign under Ben Wilkinson. Katongo, 21, has featured in 3 Premier League 2 games this season and was promoted to first-team training, having been part of the under-21 squad recently. He is ineligible for UEFA Youth League games, with Wilkinson preparing an under-19 squad for that competition on Monday. Attacking midfielder Divine Mukasa also took part in training. Mukasa has played for the first team this season and was part of a 23-man squad ahead of the game against the Bundesliga side. Pep Guardiola offered a fresh update on Rodri's fitness at his press conference earlier on Monday that suggested the Spaniard might be out for a little longer yet. "Not long, not short, but not long," he said. "We're in the process that he will be back, and when he is back, we will wait a little bit more to make sure he's fine." Manchester City will head to Bayer 04 Leverkusen without Rodri once again, as the midfielder continues his battle to regain full fitness. After a series of setbacks following his recovery from an anterior cruciate ligament injury, the Spanish international has been sidelined for recent fixtures against Borussia Dortmund, Newcastle and Liverpool. Rodri, who hasn't started a match since suffering a hamstring issue against Brentford in early October, is still working his way back to peak form. His only appearance since then came as a late substitute in City's 7-2 win over Bournemouth, but his comeback attempt was cut short. Guardiola has confirmed that Rodri will miss Tuesday. Etihad, with the manager stressing the importance of giving the player ample time to recover. "Rodri is making progress," Guardiola said. "It's been nearly 4 weeks since his last setback. He knows the physical and mental challenges he's facing. He must be patient and take the necessary time to get back to his best so he can be consistent for the rest of the season." The 29-year-old, who enjoyed a standout season in 2024, including a Ballon d'Or nomination, has struggled to maintain fitness since his return to action. Guardiola is taking a cautious approach with Rodri's recovery, prioritising long-term availability over rushing him back too soon. In addition to Rodri's absence, City will also be without Mateo Kovacic, who is recovering from Achilles surgery. However, Guardiola confirmed that the rest of the squad is fit and ready for what promises to be a tough encounter against Bayer 04 Leverkusen, a team currently performing strongly. Bayer 04 Leverkusen is a top team, Guardiola said. They're one of the toughest sides to face, especially at home. They're in Champions League form and doing really well, so we know it'll be a difficult match. But we're ready for the challenge. The fixture marks the start of a grueling period for Manchester City, with 2 matches a week set to continue until January. With the international breaks behind them, Guardiola believes the real season begins now. "Now that we're through the international windows, this is when the season truly kicks off," Guardiola explained. "It's a long stretch ahead, but what matters most is staying competitive and being in contention by the time we reach the final stretch in April and May." Guardiola also reflected on the tight race at the top of the table, pointing to previous experiences with teams like Liverpool and Arsenal. "When you get an advantage, it's hard for others to catch up. But right now, it's November, and nothing is decided yet. The real test comes in February and March. With a demanding run of fixtures ahead, Guardiola stressed the importance of building momentum. Winning tomorrow is crucial for us. We need to keep pushing and be in a good position when the season reaches its peak. Manchester City teenage sensation is doing Erling Haaland things as transfer coup pays off. Teddy Lamb has been in sensational goal-scoring form for Manchester City under-18s this season. On a day when Erling Haaland failed to score for just the third time in 21 games for club and country this season, another Manchester City scoring sensation kept up his incredible goal record. Haaland drew a blank as City lost at Newcastle in the Premier League on Saturday night. But at academy level, Teddy Lamb continues to find the net with ruthless regularity. The teenage sensation scored twice and set up the other two goals as City's under-18s beat Sheffield United 4-1 in the Premier League Cup. It wasn't enough to see the young Blues through to the knockout stage as they missed out on top spot on goal difference to Crystal Palace. But the contest on Saturday morning served as a further reminder of the burgeoning talents of the prolific Lamb. He netted 5 goals in the 3 group games, while his under-18 Premier League record stands at 8 goals in as many games.